Welcome to Laughter is the Best Medicine. Today, our guest is wildlife conservationist, veterinarian, author, the host of Animal Planet show, Evan Goes Wild, Dr. Evan Antin.
Matt, and I think you forgot to mention he's also voted People Magazine's sexiest vet for 3 years in a row.
No, I didn't forget, Susie. I just knew you wanted to mention that.
But seriously, after reading his book, Worldwide Vet, I knew he was someone we really wanted to speak to. He's using his platform to help educate people about what's happening in our wildlife and putting himself in dangerous situations, working with organizations like Rhino 911 in South Africa to help stop the poaching of white and black rhinos, and working with the gorillas in the Congo as well.
And I can't wait to hear some of the stories he's going to share with us from his travels around the world helping these animals. And also ways that we can get involved and help animals as well, because I know we all have that feeling to try to protect these animals, just the way Dr. Evan Antin is. So without further ado, here is the amazing Dr. Evan Antin.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Awesome.
Good. We're so glad to see you.
Yeah, so glad to see you too.
I actually saw you were just animated, and I loved it. You're like, I'm no longer Gaston. Someone drew you
Yeah,
as a Disney Tarzan character
it's
with
like
animals, and I'm like, honest to God, the cartoon doesn't even capture it. You really are like such a larger than life figure. But this is Laughter is the Best Medicine. So before we get started, we always want to know, when was the last time you had a really good laugh, and what was the situation?
my mom I love my mom. She's amazing. We're very close. I'm very lucky.
I
That
hear a butt coming.
but she is almost, I mean, she is infinitely proud of me. And I'm so thankful and lucky for that. Really. I mean, I think that's so good for people to have. Uh, but she just doesn't ever question anything and just assumes everything is so real. And so anyway, when this Disney thing came out, she was so excited. She thought, I really am a Disney character. I'm going to have a Disney movie about me. And she doesn't question anything. And that's not even as bad as what she's done in the past. Like, I'll just a quick backstory. When I was in veterinary school, we were going into our fourth year. Okay. And I went to Colorado State, and they had this like little, like day seminar thing, just kind of to boost motivation. You've been through 3 years, you've been through the ringer, it's getting tough. You're going into fourth year. We're going to really be on clinics. You're going to be seeing patients. You're responsible for a lot more. We want to give you confidence and get you in there. And so they made these little fake Wheaties boxes, like Wheaties cereal, always has some big athlete
Oh,
or something on it. And so they had like four different athletes that they would superimpose. They would crop our faces onto, and it was either like a golfer or a tennis player or a basketball player or a football player. And so my face is cropped onto this football player, and it's not even Colorado State colors. We're like green and yellow, and it was like red and blue. It looked like a half Bronco something or other. And and I just sent it to my mom, and I took a picture and texted it to her. I said, "Look, Mom, I'm on the Wheaties box." She tells my grandma, she tells all her friends, she tells everybody.
oh.
She didn't question it. And at this stage, I am a vet student. Nobody knows about my work or what I do. I'm not even out of vet school yet. I never played college sports. I played some football in high school. It's not even our color of the universe. Like, none of it was had any reason to make sense. And she was just didn't question it. Then her son, of course, he's on the Wheaties box. So funny to me.
That is awesome. And I have a feeling if you keep doing what you're doing, you could end up on a Wheaties box at some point. And wouldn't that come full circle?
Yeah, she would get a kick out of that. That's for sure. But
Well, she also had great vision for you, right?
yeah. I mean, she's always been there and always supported me. And I mean, and she knew that was a part of my vision. And I was really inspired by like Steve Irwin and Jeff Corwin and some of these big animal. They're like science animal communicators. They're involved with the animals and wildlife and conservation, but they do such a good job of communicating this to the rest of the world. And they have their shows and their work and everything. And I thought, man, that's something I'd love to do. Like, I'd love to help individual animals, but I want to help in a big scale or in a different way, and just raise awareness. Talk about, you combine veterinary medicine with the conservation, which is unique from me, from the other guys that have done it on TV. And at that time, there was no social media. There wasn't going viral. That was foreign to us. But she knew that was my vision. She knew that that's something I wanted to do. And this Wheaties box thing was in 2011. So to be fair, she was, she was aware of where I wanted to go, and she thought I got there a whole lot quicker than I did.
There's nothing like the faith of a mother. But you bring up guys like Steve Irwin, and to me, when I was growing up, I'm a little older. Marlon Perkins and Mutual of Omaha. And I remember growing up in Denver, and you know, we might go to the zoo once a year, but we would watch this show every Sunday night. And I just remember seeing these exotic animals and the power of what you do, of actually being out there. And if you know, people follow you on Instagram, you have a great account, but you know, I just saw you out putting a trank dart into a into a rhino,
Mm-hmm.
and you bring these animals to life for people who might otherwise only see them, you know, in posts or films. And I think that's so important because what you do is you make these animals real for people. You make people learn about them and then learn about their plight and care about them. Was this conscious when you were embarking on this career where you realized, as you said, you were going to become this conservationist, but to bring these animals to life for the people, to get people more invested in protecting them?
Yeah, I mean, just like in the same ways that you were inspired when you would watch these shows, it was the same kind of thing for me, and that was a big part of the motivation. That was a part of the vision. I mean, before vet school, I was making, educational YouTube videos, and this started when I was studying abroad in Australia, and for a part of that semester, we had a big gap between the last day of class and finals, where we have 3 weeks to study, and to me, that was like, this is time I can explore. So we had a month, but for 3 of those weeks, I rented a car and lived in that car on a budget, bought a bunch of canned food and water, and just drove in the outback on the other side of the country looking for wildlife that I could film and talk about, and talk about their natural history, their evolution, their conservation, and just, you know, just have something in the bank to show that that's where I want to go. And maybe I didn't know who would see it, or there was a producer or what have you, but that was part of the vision in a very big way ever since then, ever since 2006. And it was because of those guys, you know, the kind of guys that inspired us. I mean, at the end of the day, listen, there's a lot of people that have done amazing things for conservation, very, very, very big things that have changed the world of our wildlife. But I think Steve Irwin has inspired more people to have a heart for animals than maybe anybody in the world. And it's guys like him and Jack Hanna and everybody that have done that. I mean, that they've gotten more people excited about our wildlife than anybody. And that was very moving for me. And I've had this, you know, fascination and obsession with the natural world from a very young age, before I knew who these guys were. But seeing them do that in the way that they did, that was something I wanted to do too, in a way to give back, and also selfishly because it's fun as hell. I love getting out in the wild and getting to work with these animals. I mean, that was a dream job for me as well. I mean, I was going to enjoy it along the way, so it's kind of a win-win that I wanted to pursue.
So what was it like for you to meet the Irwin family?
Oh man, it was very special. You know, I don't get starstruck very often, and you know, we're around that a bit. You know, being in LA and being on that, you know, with that side of the work that I do get exposed to some celebrities and everything. But seeing Terry Irwin was like, oh my God, like I've been such a big fan of yours since I was a little kid, and it was so fun to get to see her. And they're really the sweetest people. And we worked with a lot of the same people. I had a show for a season on Animal Planet, and the same PR, a lot of the same executives were working with them as well, and had nothing but nice things to say. And I reached out to Bindi on Instagram and just said, hey, I'm going to be in your side of the world. If there's any chance you guys would be able to meet up for a second, let me know, because I know that because we've worked with the same people, we have some of that connection there, but we've never met in person. And she was a sweetheart. She arranged, her and Terry and Robert arranged an amazing day for me at the zoo. They met up with me for a bit and brought some animals. We took some really fun pictures and got to hang out and talk. And I got to share with them what their family's work and what their dad's work is meant to be, and how inspirational it was. So it was like a full circle moment, because that was in Australia just last year in 2020. And me wanting to pursue what I'm doing outside of the veterinary hospital, in the vet field, but out of the hospital in the media sense and that kind of thing. That was something I realized in Australia. So now the next time I'm coming back, I'm meeting the family of the man that, you know, inspired me more than anybody else in terms of that part of my life. That was super special, you know, and we lost him that very year, you know, then I was there the first time in 2006. And so, yeah, it was huge for me. It really meant a lot.
I had an opportunity to go to their zoo just outside of Brisbane. And it's not even a zoo. I mean, in the traditional sense of the ones we see very often in America, the interactivity, the way they really showed the personality of the animals and would have these displays to show how amazing the animals are. I thought it was just incredible about kind of honoring Steve's work. But I know you do more when I'm looking at your work, you had a book out, Worldwide Vet, which
Or
has
about that, yeah.
just incredible travel stories, but so much education. But what really struck me is the conservation work you've been doing. And Susie and I were talking about it, a lot of the work with rhinos. So tell us a little about the conservation work and what that means to you.
The natural world and our wildlife and our environments and these habitats, they've been more inspirational and something I've been more passionate about than anything else in my life. It means so much to me, and I want to help them in every way that I can. And so getting to be able to spend time with these people that are really on the front lines. And when it comes to African, rhino conservation, it's a bit different than conservation in other parts of the world. And we were talking about this the other day, Susie and I, and about just what that entails and how, I mean, these people, they put their life on the line at the end of the day, and it's a war that they're fighting out there, and lives are lost. Thousands of lives have been lost in just the last decade fighting this anti-poaching war, especially with the rhino. There's so much big money going into it. And just for you guys are familiar with this, but for listeners, just in case they're not aware, the rhino horn is the most expensive animal product in the world by far. It's the second most expensive thing that you can find on illegal black markets, second to diamonds. It leaves these African countries anywhere from 20, 30, 40 to 60,000 US per kilogram. And at its final destination, it's sold anywhere from 80 to 200,000 US per kilogram.
And this is thought of as an aphrodisiac, particularly for males. Is that right, where they value this?
That is one of many different reasons people get it. So on the medical side, it's questionable as to whether or not it's truly a part of traditional Chinese medicine.
Right.
Right, or TCM, as we a lot of times refer to it as, and in that world, we don't know if it's how much it really was involved in ancient TCM from 2,000 plus years ago, but today they'll say, yeah, it can cure your impotence, it can cure the flu, it can cure cancer, it has all these medical benefits. It's kind of shifted to where it's actually become probably 80% of the reason people want it is more for status symbol, and they want it as an ornament to show how successful they are as people, as a business. If they're engaging with business with new people, they'll give them a rhino horn cup or jewelry or what have you. And so it's just become popularized to as a material. And listen, it's still in medicine, and there's a lot of people that sell it as medicine, and they cut in actual medicines with the horn and not telling the consumer this. So these guys go home and they think, man, I just showed my wife the best night of her life. And because they just got a bunch of Viagra mixed in with a bunch of keratin, and they think it's the horn, right? Or it cures their flu or what have you, Right. So it's really too bad because they don't understand, and they don't, their whole relationship with wildlife is very different. Their perspective and just how they view animals and treat animals. A lot of people in that part of the world, not all, a lot of people have pets. They got big hearts for animals. They're good people doing good things. I'm not trying to generalize, but for the people involved that want to get the horn and whatnot, they just don't see it the same, and they don't see what's happening in that part of the world. So anyways, getting to be a part of it where it's truly a war, it's the time, energy, love, and life that they put into this is pretty extreme, and it inspires me. It inspires me to just do better when I come home and do better for the other animals I work with in the hospital or abroad in other parts of the world.
I was so curious about your work that you did with the Rhino Pride as well, and that conservation work. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
With the Rhino Pride Foundation, the orphanage, or
Yes.
Rhino 911?
Well, both of them.
Right. So Rhino 911, these are the guys I'm going out with. We're doing anti-poaching. We're doing horn trims. We're rescuing orphans. We're really intervening out and doing things in the field. Rhino Pride Orphanage is it's run by Dr. Yana, and she's amazing, and she's a veterinarian as well. And she takes in orphans. And so when a rhino gets poached, the moms, like babies, live with their mom for years, right? They're dependent on their mom on some level for a few years. And so if mom gets poached and the baby survives, they are not going to survive in the wild. They're, especially the young babies, they need their mom for protection. They need their mom for food. And if they don't have those things, they're just a death sentence out there with all those predators and everything. And if there's no predators, they're just going to starve. And so this orphanage, along with others, take in these rhinos that don't have any hope to survive on their own. And the goal at the end of the day is to eventually get these animals back into the wild, into a protected area where they can go back and be a wild rhino once again later in their life, when they're have the size and the ability and the know-how to do so. And then another thing too, with how these rhinos come to orphanages, is that having a rhino these days is a very risky thing to have, because when you have rhino, you're putting your life at risk. You're putting your family's life at risk. If you can't afford some intensive security, and even with security, it's still risky. But if you can't afford that, and it's very expensive to protect rhino, we're talking anti-poaching units, electric fences, security, footage cams, infrared, like often helicopters, available within just a few minutes, kind of thing. Like, it's super expensive, and so if you don't have that, you're risking your life, because the poachers that go out to kill the rhino, they kill people to get those horns. I mean, that money, they kill people for far less than a rhino horn in many parts of the world, and that includes many parts of South Africa, unfortunately. So when we're talking about tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars of profit, they're not going to bat an eye. And so a lot of these rhino, what I'm getting at is they come from private reserves. Before this rhino poaching crisis, which has been going on in sub-Saharan Africa for a few decades, but specifically in South Africa in a heavy way since 2008. And since then, these private owners and have private land and wildlife, they're like, we can't afford this. We can't risk this. I can't put my family at risk. I can't put my land at risk. I just can't do this. And so they have to, unfortunately, capture up and sell these rhino, or donate them, or relinquish them, really, to a rhino orphanage.
Is this the most dangerous conservation work that you've done?
Yeah, these are the most dangerous. I mean, there's times I've gotten in the helicopter and they say, hey, this is a dangerous time to fly. You don't have to get in this right now. But if we want to go on this flight, this is a risk that we might come across poachers. And if I'm going and doing, conservation with, let's say, a spectacled bear in Peru, I'm probably not going to come across poachers that are going to, trying to kill these bears or kill me potentially at any point in time, So it's just different parts of the world. And like we were talking the other day, North America, if you go into a national park and you want to do pronghorn conservation, you're probably not going to come across poachers with, homemade silencers on their AKs and stuff like that.
For the average person, Evan, who's probably not going to go get in the helicopter or travel there, or maybe couldn't afford to do more, how can they get involved in these efforts? Because I know so many people hear these stories and want to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think raising awareness is the first step in conservation. And I always botch this line that Jane Goodall said, and I'm sure others have said something like it, but something along the lines of, you can't love what you don't know, and you won't change what you don't love. My point being, if you're not aware of it, you're not going to make a difference, because you don't even know that it's a problem to begin with. And so that raising awareness is a great place to start. And it doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time, and just sharing posts of conservationists doing the work that they do and letting people know, hey, this is a problem. This is something going on. And that can inform other people and other tourists and eco-tourists, or maybe people that want to give back. And then that goes into the next, way that if you have a little bit of money that you want to donate, you want to help out, if you can give that to an organization that we trust is putting their money into the animals and habitats that need it, that goes a long way. I mean, that's a phenomenal way to help. Unfortunately, these days, there's so many organizations that talk a big game, and they get celebrities, and these are actors or people that don't know anything about conservation. I'm not bagging on them. It's just not their profession. And so they think they're supporting something that's getting a big name and getting their word out there, when really at the end of the day, it's taking money away from the animals that need it. And then listen, anything, if you're going to follow my work and you see what I do, whether I mention it in the book or I've tagged them online or shared my work with them, it's almost always an organization I've worked with firsthand. And if it's not something firsthand, it's somebody I'm very familiar with their work, and you can trust them, is what I'm getting at the end of the day.
Great.
If I've tagged them or worked with them and I promote their work, you can absolutely trust them. And if that's a cause or a habitat or a species or whatever that you'd like to help out, get behind, if you do want to donate money to the organizations I've worked with specifically, it's going in the right hands, and it's going to those animals that you want your money to be helping.
So you've had all these amazing experiences around the world, from swimming with whale sharks in Australia to working in elephant sanctuaries in Chiang Mai to temple monkeys in Angkor Wat in Cambodia, which is one of my favorite countries. What is the most amazing experience that stands out for you?
They all have their own unique something that's special and memorable, and just makes them, do what I do and why I love it so much. With the rhino work going on that, it's just something that stuck out with that was just how much these people put on the line to fight for what they believe in. And that's for our wildlife. Their country doesn't back them up that much. They don't get that much funding from the country. A lot of the people in government are inside job, getting involved in rhino horn stuff. The penalty for the people poaching is pretty weak, unfortunately. So I mean, they're just it just opened my eyes up to seeing what people are willing to put themselves through for something they believe in, for wildlife, for just some of the most iconic wildlife and habitats, and what makes Africa and South Africa what it is. They just I get emotional talking about it. They can't see it any other way, and they're gonna fight is to the death to do that. And so that for me was very moving and very special. I'm a huge reptile person, so you brought up Southeast Asia, and like, man, when I went to Indonesia, that place is a totally different note, but that's some of my favorite wildlife. I mean, I dreamed of seeing Komodo dragons ever since I was a little kid. And knowing these are the biggest lizards in the world, and just they're called dragons, which was cool as a kid and everything, and getting to see those and some of the most rare crocodilian species over there, the false gharials or tomistomas, and the all the different crazy birds and primates and orangutans and tarsiers, like the smallest primate in the world, to the people of the forest, the orangutan and the gibbons and proboscis monkeys in between, and all the crazy hornbills. Like, that place is, and some of those beautiful snakes I ever caught in the wild were in Indonesia. Yeah, everywhere's special, man. I can't, it's hard to hone in on one, but they all mean something to me for some different reason.
But as you list these animals, you're mentioning vipers, you're mentioning dragons, Komodo dragons. As we saw with Steve Irwin, so tragically, this can be dangerous. These are wild animals. Have you had scary moments with animals?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had some close calls. And it is, to my, I do feel bad for my parents and people that care about me, that I'm so fascinated and passionate about some of our most dangerous wildlife, some of our venomous snakes and crocodiles and those things. Those are amongst my favorite and always have been. I mean, reptiles is what really got me into the animal world at a very young age. And I love working with big cats and primates and everything else too. But yeah, I mean, I've been on the wrong side of water in a big male hippo in Tanzania. I had a big male orangutan, tracking me in the forest, cutting me off my path multiple times in a visit there in Indonesia. When I was like 17, I got man, crazy story. I got bit in the face by a copperhead, which is a venomous snake native to the Midwest.
Bit in the face by a venomous snake.
By a venomous snake.
And you still are doing this job.
Yeah, no, it was honestly, it was in some ways a blessing, because at that time I clearly needed to be humbled a little bit, and I needed to respect the fact that wild animals are wild, and not to push the boundary with them. And luckily, it's a venomous snake, but at the end of the day, its toxicity is nothing of that compared to some of the more dangerous rattlesnakes, let alone some of the tiger snakes and adders and other animals I've worked with in other parts of the world. It was a valuable lesson for me to learn at that age, because in my late teens and very early 20s, I put myself in situations where I was so keen to just get this wildlife experience, where I wasn't putting enough emphasis on really the situation as a whole and my safety. And so that was good for me, really, looking back. But yeah, I mean, listen, I love sharks. I mean, that's my favorite thing to see in the ocean is sharks, and swimming with them. Technically, you're taking a risk when you're free diving with big 15-foot tiger sharks. I think it's low, and the risk is low relative to where I was, and things weren't likely to go down in a bad way. But yeah, when you get in the water with certain animals or engage with certain animals, even the vet work that I do, which that's a lot of it. I had a jaguar rather, waking up early on me in Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. And I was like, it sucked, because I wasn't finished with the veterinary work I needed to do. I really needed to look at some other parts of this animal and get some other things for our diagnostics we were doing. And yeah, I mean, I put myself in a situation that could have been pretty horrible, but I just took the risk and felt okay with it, and thought, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be good. And luckily things worked out fine.
I'm sure your mom loves hearing this.
Yeah, I know.
I was pretty sure, Mom.
I didn't think things were going to happen, and I really thought she was coming out slowly, but I had to look into her mouth, because we were having issues with her eating. And you can't, as a vet, I can't feel good about what I'm going to do moving forward and what I know or don't know moving forward without getting a really good oral exam on this animal.
Did you find anything in the mouth? Did it
negative.
pay off? Nothing. You take the risk.
Now I know.
Well, at least
I can rule that out. I can go with that information And I can comfortably put my focus
And
elsewhere.
I think we did just see all 10 fingers, so we know it
Exactly.
did come out okay.
So in your book, you write about living with a Maasai family. And I'm
Yes.
so fascinated by their culture. And given that they are the tallest people in Africa, I'm sure that you fit right in during your stay. But I'm so curious if you could tell us more about that experience and what that was like for you.
Another special eye opener. So this was in 2007, the first time I ever met any Maasai in person. I was doing another study abroad after that Australia semester. It was the next year, and I did a wildlife ecology conservation program in northern Tanzania, which included of that semester a week, staying with the Maasai. And I was very lucky. Of that 19 student group, I got to stay with the chief of that community. I slept in a boma, which was basically I was actually elevated off the ground, which is very important in that part of the world with the dangerous snakes and spiders that can live around there and scorpions and stuff. And so I was on this like almost 5 foot long by maybe 2 foot wide elevated cot kind of a thing, and it was backed up right next to the goats that they had that they would bring in at night to protect the goats from leopards and stuff like that, obviously. And so those goats were shitting and farting right next to me all night, and I'm just like in the fetal position, curled on this thing, and being woken up before sunrise with the fire, and they were starting to make food or whatever for the day, and it was a trip, man. I mean, just everything about it.
I have been told that's what it's like sleeping next to me. I don't know if that's true.
Brutal, man. Yeah. So I mean, the whole experience. I mean, the day we got there, you see so many differences in our culture compared to the way they live their life, right? But also at the end of the day, it's pretty cool to see there's so many parallels, and regardless of how they live their life, and I see this all over the world. Really, 99.9% of us, we're just people, and we want the same thing. We want love, life, happiness, and we want to look after our family and provide for them too. And it's really no different. So that was a really beautiful thing as well, and it was very clear with that culture, how they, what their priorities were, and just what happy people they were. I mean,
Yeah.
It's tough for us with our perspective, because I'll tell you, I still to this very day am so thankful for the simple things like having running water that's temperature controlled, safe to drink, on tap in multiple parts of my house. That's what a luxury, and they don't have that, or their smartphones or cars or anything. They don't have AC or anything like that, obviously, but they're happy people. On their average happiness, I think is strong, or maybe stronger than ours here in America.
Yeah, it's amazing what you don't need.
It's amazing what the human body is capable of too.
Yeah.
What we can do. I mean, I think we've gotten away so far from so many of our skill sets and so many of our instinct, with all the luxuries and things that we have in our world, and we don't put ourselves through the same struggles. We have stress. Don't get me wrong. Like, we do have our stresses. But like, you can just be so physically sedentary like your entire life these days, and
Yeah.
it's just not in our genes. It's not in our evolution to function that way, and it seems so unhealthy in its own ways. Even we have our modern medicine, we have other things that can keep us healthy, obviously, and we get all the nutrition. We can get food from anywhere in the world, locally. We can do all that, but it's just, man, when you get away from what it is to be kind of wild and the roots of being a human or an animal, which I believe we are, it's just crazy.
You mentioned you were fascinated by reptiles growing up, but you said you started in business in college. What made you then switch into the field you're in now, getting into veterinary medicine? Was there one moment where you just realized business is not it? I need to be with the animals?
I mean, kind of like I was taking intro business courses, which at that time I wasn't super interested in. I mean, I think I would find it more interesting now, to be honest, just being a functioning adult in the world instead of a kid out of high school. You know what I mean? But it wasn't really floating my boat a whole lot, and I was taking some general elective science courses, and so I took general biology one, and really evolutionary biology is what did it. And I was vaguely familiar with evolution at that time. But when I learned that much more about it, and just how that works, and the things that support evolution, I was just like, it made more sense to me than anything ever has in my life at that point, for whether it's religion or whatever else. I mean, it just tied all these things together, and especially being someone that loves the natural world, it just made so much sense to me. and I loved it so much. And you know, in the back of my mind, I always thought being, you know, in the medical field would be interesting, and I thought of that from the human doctor standpoint. Like I always thought surgery looked super cool, and just being in medicine and the science, like I thought it looked kind of neat, but I never really pursued or did anything with it. It was just kind of a back of the mind thing. But knowing that, knowing how much I love to learn finally, like I liked learning, I liked studying, I liked just learning more. When I was a high school kid, I didn't like it. I hated school, and I just did what I had to get by to get decent grades to get into college. Like it wasn't like that fun for me, except for maybe one class or two. So yeah, liking medicine, liking to learn, and just knowing how much I love animals. I was like 18. I was like, man, I think this makes so much sense for me. Like this, I think is my calling. You know, it kind of occurred to me, and then I just started pursuing it, and it just, the further I pursued it, the more sense it made, and I just never looked back. And then getting experience, you know, I did my first wildlife experience was at the Greenwood Wildlife Rehab Sanctuary near Boulder, Colorado, and I was a squirrel and raccoon intern, and I got to work with these animals and learn what wildlife rehab is all about, and I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to do that outside the States too. And you know, by the time I was in my third year, I realized, man, you know, what's stopping me from doing this? I can save enough money to at least get a flight ticket. And most of my favorite, you know, a lot of my favorite places where my favorite wildlife is, it's cheap to get by there. You know, you go to Central America or Southeast Asia, you know, you don't have to have a big budget. You're going to stay in kind of shitty places. You know, you're going to have rats and cockroaches in your room, and you're going to be eating pretty basic food. And I was living on muesli and peanut butter jelly sandwiches and stuff, or just whatever I could find in street food. But if you could just muster up and just save enough money to get there, which I acknowledge that's, you know, not everybody can even do that. I was lucky to even do that and be in college and everything. But like, yeah, I could make it happen, you know, and I got scholarships for studying abroad, big scholarships, you know, they were giving money out practically in those days. I don't know if it's the same now, but I was just really lucky, and I just made the most of those opportunities. And the more I did, to answer that question, you know, going into that field and preparing myself for vet school, the more sense it made.
You come from Kansas City, which my mom's from Kansas City too, so we haven't discussed that.
Yeah.
And you worked really hard to get where you are today. And you sort of built this beautiful life and dream. I'm wondering if there was a moment along this path where you really struggled and you weren't sure if you were going to get to where you are today.
You know, like there's times in vet school when you're like, yeah, man, this is just going to be the end of me. You know, like I'm not a dummy. You know, if I put my time in, I can do well in school, but I've got to put that time in. You know, I don't have a photographic memory. I've got to spend the time studying and everything. I felt like you know, I knew I was going to get through it, but oh my gosh, like second year, you've got huge exams that can ruin your career, you know, your education if you fail them. Like you can't fail any of these exams. It's so stressful. I think my cortisol has never been higher than it was at certain points in vet school, and maybe in the operating room too. In practice, can be very, very stressful. But like, it just beats up on you. And so I don't listen. I'm lucky that I never got to a point where I question if it's going to happen. In a sense of, can I do what I need to do to make it happen? I always question. You don't know. I can't predict the future. Like I never looked at it as like, I just know it's going to happen. I know I'm going to be doing. I know I'm going to have a show. I know I'm going to write a book. Like I was never like that. But I had the vision, and I did everything in my power and took advantage of every opportunity I got to make it happen. And so for me, my success, it's been this opportunity plus hard work meets the results I've been working towards. But I never questioned whether or not I could do that, because I was so fully committed in it that it you know, hell or high water, some big shit was going to have to get in my way to prevent that or make it look like it wouldn't happen. So I'm lucky, you know, I just never got to a point where I felt defeated.
Well, it's the power of a vision. It sounds like you had this vision, and I think that's something that, you know, awesome that you found it, that you identified it and then pursued it. And you clearly have such a passion for this. One of the things that struck me, we've talked about the rhinos, you mentioned some run-ins with orangutans, but chimps, which to me are, you know, as we look at primates, it's just remarkable. What's your work with chimpanzees been like?
Chimps, man, they're scary, dude. You know, like I've gotten to work with chimps in rescue setting in the Democratic Republic of the Congo at a place called the Rhino Chimp Rehab Center, and they do amazing work, and it's also very scary work. One of my buddies, who's a pilot, who initially got me in contact, so this guy, his name is Anthony Sayeti, and he had a viral video of him and a young baby chimpanzee in his airplane, and he was taking it from where it was rescued to this rescue center. And I think Ellen DeGeneres shared it, and he went pretty viral there for a bit. And when I saw that, I reached out. I'm like, "Hey, man, you do incredible work. It's just so cool to see what you do." And I just want to say what's up and give you a shout out. And I'm thankful for what you do, because you're working in a pretty tough part of the world. And then we just hit it off. We got in touch, and then I told him I was going to South Africa for some more rhino work, and I really wanted to cruise up to the DRC and try to see what this chimp business was all about, and get, just kind of get into that world. And he set me up with Laredo and a gal named Mitsaso, who's the one that's basically co-running the rescue center itself. And man, that's another world. That's another really, really, really scary world, and where, like, Anthony, he puts his life on the line to do what he does, and he's lost a lot of friends and almost lost his life.
So it's not the animals that are dangerous, it's poachers.
I'm referring to the people. Yes, I'm referring to the people and the poachers. And it's not just poachers, though, because of where he is. There's a lot of guerrillas in that part of the world, like militant groups that are trying to control parts of the country, and they'll come in and sweep through and just rape, pillage villages. And if you're not with us, you're against us kind of mentality. And they're brutally violent, brutally vicious.
By the way, I have to admit, when you said gorillas, I was thinking King Kong, like gorillas. Right, I thought, oh no, humans again. Well, there are guerrilla warriors.
There are geo gorillas there too, which was a part of what we did, and it actually also plays into.
There's danger all around, essentially.
Yeah, I can tell you about geo gorillas, with it associated with GU gorillas within a story that's pretty frightening as well.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah, so he put me in touch with the chimps. Got out there, and it was really special to get to see this, because again, these people put their lives on the line, not just because of the militant guerrillas and the wildlife, but tropical diseases. I mean, they get malaria all the time. I mean, it's a rough place to live, and the poverty and danger in that country in certain areas is very real and very scary, and you just have to be really smart. I mean, you can't even trust law enforcement. My first drive, I'm there, I'm in the front seat of this car, and a cop is trying to stop us on the road, and my driver is driving around the cop and speeding away. I'm like, oh shit, dude, like, what? I don't want to be a fugitive here or whatever. Like, what is going on? And then, they explain, hey, it's this, they're going to just try to extort you. The poaching motivation with chimps is parts of the Middle East, especially Syria, and parts of Southeast Asia, especially parts of China. They like to get chimp babies so they can have them as pets, or have them in like these really sketchy, like roadside zoos, like not cute things, like not good, like circus kind of environments where they take horrible care of them, and they just force them to do, wear little tutus and dance and do stupid stuff. And it's a terrible thing. And all those times you see those animals, they're all caught from the wild. In order to catch a wild baby chimp, where you have any chance of making this animal do what you want it to do, because you catch it at that young age and use it while it's still cute or whatever to tourists, is you have to go out in the wild and you have to kill its entire family that it's with. Because just like us, chimps will fight to the death to protect their babies, as we would if we were in the wild too, I believe. The average size of a group of chimps is 10 to 20 chimps, and many times it's more, and it's usually not much less than that. So on average, at the very least, you're killing 10 chimpanzees to get this baby. Now, the adults they kill, they use them for bushmeat. I'm not saying it makes me feel better, but they have a motivation to kill them as well, because they do consume those animals. But yeah, to get those babies, you got to kill, like I said, 10 plus chimps. And then these babies, the care that they receive once they're captured, and the transportation to get to these far off countries on the other side of the continent or the other side of the world, 80 to 90% of those chimps do not survive. And that says a lot, because as an animal, as a primate, as an ape, chimps are very, very durable and very hardy. Okay, you can really abuse a chimp physically, and they can come back for another day. I mean, it takes a lot to kill even young chimps like that. And so what you're seeing when you go to the rescue is they do have huge, big areas, like huge areas that incorporate natural water and rocks and stuff. And anyways, these are designed for adults, and these are all orphans that have become a new family with the intent to eventually release them. Now, chimps are also interesting and unique in terms of releasing them. You can release a rhino, and it's a lot more straightforward. You can't release any rhino anywhere, let alone the human conflict, the poachers and stuff. But even with the other rhino, you have to kind of take in mind what's going on with that habitat, that area. But with chimps, if you don't release enough chimps that can protect themselves and fight and whatnot, other chimp troops will slaughter them. I mean, chimps fight to the death. They don't just don't just slap each other around or talk a big game and then back off and like butt heads. Like they'll rip each other to shreds, literally. And so you have to create these families where there's enough of them, and there's an alpha male, and they've got a whole unit where the interrelationships between them is sufficient to go then out and survive in the wild. Anyways, 3 days after we were out of that park, there was a big firefight with some of those pygmies and some of the rangers. And 3 to 4, it was 3 or 4, I want to say it was 3 guys lost their life. And some of them might have been some of the ones that were with us. I had a big group with me, and it was mostly park guys that were, had rifles with them, and they were bodyguards as much as they were park rangers. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just a war out there, and we were just a couple of days away from, seeing something like that. And unfortunately, yeah, I mean, this is happening constantly. I mean, last year, my buddy Anthony, I mean, a lot of his guys that work with him at his base and for the wildlife conservation, they got completely ambushed. Completely. And they were all driving back, and there was like, I think 12 of them driving back, and I think all but 1 or maybe 2 died.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And these guys were hiding out in the bushes and just laid it on them. I mean, a lot of them had all these big rifles. I don't know if they're automatic or not, but they just laid it on them. And these guys were just going back to base, just doing routine day stuff, harmless, just trying to do their part, and that kind of stuff happens a lot up there. It's really, really scary. And with chimps, I would feel bad if I didn't mention this, while we're on that topic, because we've talked about, spreading awareness and that kind of thing and how people can help. And the chimps is one of the most classic and important examples of how we engage with chimp related content on social media. And so a lot of people aren't aware of this, but certain content involving chimps on social media is actually fueling the poaching of these animals and fueling the motivation for people wanting them to become pets or get in their service or whatever the hell they're doing. And that content is anything that's making chimp look like some sort of a pet. So if it's cuddling and playing with people, especially Westerners, way more so than Africans. You see it with an African, a black person from the Congo that's doing that. It's very different than when you see a Westerner cuddling it. If you see it in clothes, you see it playing with domesticated pets like dogs and cats. If you see it doing anything human, like taking a bath, playing on a cell phone, all that stuff. Even if it's chimp that's not in Africa, but in America, whatever it is. When you see that kind of stuff, it fuels the poaching of these animals. Because when that stuff goes viral, people are saying, oh my God, how cute. Oh my God, I want one. Oh my God, like blah, blah, blah. Like this is so adorable, amazing, and everything. And the sad thing is the people that are doing this, their heart is in the right place. They don't know that this is bad for chimps. They appreciate these animals. They think they're cute and amazing. And so they want, that they would never, ever want to do anything that's actually a disservice to these animals' wild counterparts. But it is, and it fuels poaching. And so what I'm trying to get at is when you see that kind of content, ignore it, avoid it, don't share it, don't like it, don't comment on it, don't do any of that kind of stuff, because all you're doing is promoting that content. And whether, even if I used to say, say something like educate people about it, and you should, I'm not saying it's wrong, but at the same time, every comment that you leave, it's engagement. And whether Instagram's not looking at you saying, hey, don't share this or don't support this or do, they're just seeing numbers. And that's how their analytics are going to work. And that's how these posts are going to get bigger and bigger. And because we go on social media for fun, it's entertaining. And when I go on my own, just casually, I like to just be entertained too. I'm not trying to preach down on people or whatever, but I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad either, because I don't think they know that this is a problem and their heart is in the right place. And if they did know, they wouldn't do it. But it's a real problem. And really, just engaging with that stuff is just not doing our chimpanzees any favors. And so I would feel wrong not getting that message out there.
I'm wondering too, we know about the healing power of animals, and you do more than anyone. Is there a particular story where you really saw an animal having a tremendous impact on either a group of people or an individual?
Yeah, I've seen it in different ways. I mean, one of the ways that I personally love to help people with that is with animals that are misunderstood. So I've got a big soft spot for misunderstood animals, especially snakes and sharks and rats and arachnids and like spiders and stuff. I mean, there's irrational fear of those animals and many more around the world. But I try to share with people why, hey, actually, you don't need to be afraid of this animal, or it's not really realistic. I mean, one of my favorites, not favorite, like this is a terrible thing, but like more people are bitten by and therefore die from human bites in New York City alone than shark bites to people around the world.
Wow.
And you're more likely to be struck by lightning and all these things combined than.
And also stay away from New York City right now. That's another good point. A lot of human bitings going on.
This was before pandemic. I learned the statistic. I mean, I'm sad to say that really might be worse actually right now. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, you know, stuff like that. And like, man, when I have introduced people, adults or children, to a snake, and they've gone from never touching one, always being irrationally afraid of one, getting the total heebie-jeebies, like it really makes them uncomfortable, to getting them to a position, you know, situation where they see this animal, it's just relaxing on me, it's chill, it's not showing any signs of aggression or threat or offensive behavior whatsoever. And then if I can get them to touch this animal, maybe even hold it, and I see this in this very moment going from this fear to this like, oh, this, okay, I kind of get it. Like, I'm not as crazy as you. I don't want to go work with rattlesnakes, you know, but like, this is not so bad. Like that to me is super special. And like, especially like it's fun with adults because they're so hardwired and it's almost harder to do, but it's so fun with kids too. And I've had kids in like my last neighborhood where I lived, where there was a California king snake in the neighborhood. This family's freaking out, and clearly both parents were afraid of snakes. The kids were mortified, petrified. And I caught this snake. It's non-venomous, it's harmless, it can't hurt you at all. These kids went from being so terrified and some on the verge of tears to saying, Mom, we want to keep this as a pet. Like they just completely 180'd, and like that kind of stuff is so fun. Another one, man, I was in Kenya in the end of 2018, and I was getting to work with a few different species at a beautiful reserve in the Laikipia area. And we spent part of a day with a couple elephants that were wild, but relatively habituated to people, okay? And one of them was a very big male, and the other one was his daughter, which was a pretty big female, but she still had some growing to do. And the community neighborhood children there, the Kenyan native kids, they were raised to believe that elephants are a mere pest. Like the way that Westerners and Americans look at elephants as being iconic and special. And I bet if you ask people their favorite animal, almost 50% will probably say an elephant. Like we just regard them so highly. And for reasons that from my perspective, I see as well. Like I get it. Like they really are just so incredible. It's like such a different perspective with these kids. They're just this big, dangerous pest. And it's like how we view, not that I agree with it, but how we view, you know, little rodent pests and gophers and stuff. Most people view them as a pest, and it's unfortunate, but it's reality. It's like elephants are just like a big gopher or something in Kenya. Anyways, when we got these kids there, I don't speak enough Swahili to be able to translate to them, so I had some help with translation. Some of them spoke some English too, which was cool. But I got to show them some neat adaptations, get them up close and personal, feed this elephant. And I even got to borrow a couple kids to feed the elephant, touch it, touch the trunk, see it up close and personal, which they've never had that opportunity, not even close. And it just changed their perspective so dramatically. Like even these kids that were brought up to believe so different could see how special and incredible and amazing these animals are. And
Evan, you've been so generous with your time because we know how busy you are. What's coming up on the agenda for you?
I mean, last year was a little slower for me. I was very lucky. I got to travel a few times and do some really good stuff. I just want to get back in it. We were talking about the book. I released that at the end of last year. That's my latest like big project. I'm so pumped about that. And
I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I spent the weekend, read it cover to cover, and you have so many.
By the way, tell me you did a few curls before that, because you got the gun show going on there, bro.
That's I was working that day. That was in the middle of a hospital day.
Oh my God.
I was seeing patients, and then that was
dude is jacked.
And they came in and set that up, and we had this big. It was so much fun. Anyways, yeah, that's that for me. I'm basically sharing my story from like kind of what we were talking about, from like early young adult wildlife enthusiasts getting into trouble and not, you know, just doing everything I could.
Follow him on Instagram, Dr.Evan Antin, and it's amazing.
It's been so informative talking to you, and we can just feel your heart and your passion for what you're doing. And this isn't just a job for you. This is clearly a calling, which is so inspiring for so many people to see how much you love what you do. And We're so appreciative of how much you've informed us about various organizations to get involved in. And before we finish up, I'm wondering if you would answer a few rapid fire questions for us.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so your favorite animal and why?
That's not easy.
The other animals will not be listening.
Yeah, I mean,
So you're not going to make them jealous.
I would say, like, from a young age, like I mentioned, reptiles really got me. Like, I would say crocodiles. Like, they're living dinosaurs. Their adaptations are fascinating.
Well, my favorite snack is the chocodile, so I can feel you on that. So if you could interview anyone, alive or dead, who would it be? And what's the question you would most want to ask them?
I mean, it'd probably have to be like somebody super historic. Like, I'm not even.
John Audubon, Charles Darwin, any of these
like
guys?
Moses or something.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, like something where I can communicate with. Well, I guess I'd have to find a translator. I don't think he's speaking English, but like, I mean, I just want, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't, you know, I don't even know what it's like. I have so many questions, like, with how, you know, so many things that affect our life today with major religion, whether it's, you know, Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, everything. I mean, plays into things that have happened so long ago.
Yeah.
And it's still a huge part of our lives. And I think I would just ask about some of those stories.
Do you have a favorite saying or word and why?
Be proactive. I mean, just so much of what I've been able to do has just been making the most of opportunities and finding opportunities and then building off opportunities, and I've already built off of. Like, it just grows from there.
What would you want said about you on your 100th birthday?
That's an awesome question. I've never heard that before. I just want, I hope I make a difference by then. I hope I really make a difference with our wildlife, and that, you know, I think there's ways to do that where everybody wins, and I can help the people doing it. I can help the wildlife and the habitats, and I can help myself, so I can be able to keep doing this. You know what I mean? But I just want to make a difference. I want to have an impact. I want to, you know, help people understand misunderstood animals. I want to help with conservation.
It's a beautiful answer. So our last question is, as a vet, what's the most embarrassing moment that you had? Now looking back, you find it to be hilarious.
It would probably be something with imaging, like X-ray and ultrasound. And I say that because it's sometimes some of the most straightforward stuff we do as vets, but sometimes it's just like, I just remember I read an X-ray totally wrong, and I was like glad I had a colleague to be like, no. I was like, oh my God. Like,
oh my God. I should
wow.
rethink my career.
Yeah, no, it humbles you, man. It really, really humbles you when you do that, because you do all this other stuff. And you know, I'm not saying I'm better than any other vet. I don't mean like that. But I mean, as vets, you know, we do stuff that's kind of crazy that, you know, it's very rewarding, and I feel like accomplished, and I feel good about it. And I know it's not easy to do. And then you do something stupid, and you're like, oh my God, dude. Like, whoa. Oops. Okay.
But in your defense, I will point. I was a medical doctor. As a doctor, you focus on one species. You have every species, and you don't have like you know, the crocodile pulmonologist. You cover the whole animal, all these species. So what you do is so amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so you guys got it easy. So yeah, no, I'm kidding.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But you know what? I salute you for having that humility to, because a lot of people don't want to put themselves in an uncomfortable position. But you're doing it to learn, but you're also doing it to share the stories. And so I salute you for being able to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to grow and to share. So kudos, man.
I really appreciate it.
It's been awesome talking to you.
We really
thank
enjoyed
you guys
it.
so much. I really appreciate it too. And I'm a blabbermouth. I know I could go on and on about these different topics. So thanks for being patient and hearing me out. And I love talking about it and sharing it too.
And we're just so appreciative of your time.
Well, it means a lot, and it's that much more exciting to get to talk to another couple medical professionals, you know, than.
And on behalf of your mom, be safe out there.
Yes, thanks. She would very much appreciate that. Thank you.
I was just home with my mom, so I could already hear my mom. If I were doing what you were doing, she would have a heart attack.
Oh,
So
she'll love
awesome
you.
that you're
Thank
doing
you.
it. Yeah. Well done. Thank you for your time, Dr. Evan Antin. Awesome. Okay. That guy's a stud. Just as advertised. Just amazing. Traveling the world. Helping animals, helping the cause, doing so much good.
And you can just feel his heart. He just loves what he does. He's so passionate. And to learn just from a small child, this was just something that he felt destined to do. and he was determined to make this a reality and make this happen. And it's just so inspiring just spending this time with him and really learning about everything he's doing in the world to help animals, from Rhino 911 to chimpanzees and everything in between.
He really feels like he should have been around in the 1800s, and it all should have been recounted in books. We'll tell you the tale of Evan Antin, doctor, traveling the outback and the darkest parts of Africa to save the animals. Great pleasure talking to Dr. Evan Antin today on Laughter is the Best Medicine, and we will have more next time.